right. Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the channel. If you are new, hello, I'm Vivian. I'm a researcher and a writer, and today is going to be focused on the nonfiction side of what I do, the researchy side. I was gonna say the research and the writer, but that's both of them. Today, I am working on an essay. So, a couple of weeks back, I had this idea to write an essay for magazines. They pay you for them. It's a nice way to try to get a bit of money. I wanted to do an essay on mythology and Taylor Swift. I had the idea and I just thought it'll be fun. And then I started brainstorming the idea and I accidentally plotted a book. And not only did I accidentally plot a book, but I accidentally plotted a book that I'm kind of excited about. We're gonna revisit that, but like for reals now, thinking about it as an essay. Basically, I do want to write it as a book eventually. I have found, particularly with my last book chapter that I wrote for a proposal, I'll be honest, it's not my best work. And I think I have found that writing my nonfiction work without a contract, without any kind of idea of whether or not something's going to come out of it, has become a slog. I say this because I think it's important to note that I currently have 3 nonfiction proposals that are just like, I put in all the work, I put in all the effort, and they are just sitting on my computer. And that's it. That's where they are because they haven't gone anywhere. I haven't really found someone who really wants them. So it's kind of this idea that has become dead in the water. And it means that when I sat down to do my latest one, the 3rd one, which is on video games and mythology, I found that the writing wasn't great because in the back of my mind, I'm just sat there being like, it might not go anywhere. It might just sit on my computer. And in which case, why am I putting in all of this time and energy and effort that I could be spending on something else? It's not the right attitude to have, but it's also a very understandable attitude to have. I will give myself that grace, but that doesn't make it useful of an attitude, nor is it good. That's just straight up what it is. My mindset right now, to explain, is that I'm thinking that if I write an essay with the intention of it being published, and then that becomes the blueprint that I then rewrite slightly in a much more like this is a chapter kind of way, then that can become my sample writing. And I've essentially gotten 2 publications out of it. So even if it does end up sitting on my desk not doing anything, I've at least gotten something out of it, or at least I had tried in 2 different ways. And I'm hopeful that having that mentality also means that the essay is actually going to be worth reading in a way that the sample writing in my video game one, it isn't. So that's the idea. That's what we're trying for. So what that means is that I need to approach this not like it's a sample chapter in a book, but rather like it's a standalone essay. I think this is the better way of thinking about it. It's the better way of progressing. And it also means that, like I said, I get 2 publications out of it. I can publish the essay and then I can rewrite it, maybe move some stuff out of it to go into a separate chapter, move other things into it that were, removed from it before, rewrite it a little bit, and now I've got myself a sample chapter. The problem is this. I feel a little bit like when I was teaching, right, at universities. I often had seminars that I was running for first-year students. Often, the argument that you would get into with students is, this essay topic you have chosen is way too broad. And often first years don't understand it. I had this problem. Everyone has this problem. It's a problem that you have where you're like, I had somebody come to me that said they're going to do, for a 3,000 word essay, they were going to do the history of Christianity. Right? So it's like, okay, let's pare that back a little bit. So I'm kind of at that point right now. I'm looking at a whole book. And my topic that I have in my head right now is the one that is the whole book. If I'm going to do a 5,000 word essay, which is the limit that I am putting on myself, it is typically the limit that I have seen for magazines, I am going to need to step that back. I am going to need to make this a lot more specific, a lot more streamlined, and just more boundaries in place in regards to the topic. All of which I don't have right now. So that's what the goal is for today. By the end of today, I would like to have a more specific topic that I'm going to be covering and maybe some idea of how I'm going to do it. I do not need to have an outline by the end of today. I do not need to have been writing anything today. And the sun has come out at the idea. Today, I just really need to focus in and get my 100,000 word idea down to a 5,000 word idea. And most of the way that this happens is by putting extra ideas on top of it. So it's not, say, for example, the history of Christianity, but it's the history of this very specific thing in this very specific location. That's what you need to kind of narrow it down on. And even then it was a bit too broad, but what are you going to do? So for this, I need to take it from the mythology of Taylor Swift down to something at least a little bit more specific. My tea has gone cold because I am still using it from like when it was freshly made at like 6:30 this morning. It is now 9:48. So tea is cold. I am going to make probably some coffee and then we're gonna sit down and do this. So let's actually plan an essay this time. Okay, so I think this is all going to go in the actual book, but I was looking through my repertoire of different sources, and I found one that I didn't know I even had, and I I don't know why I would have grabbed this. But look, it's Spaces of Puppets in Popular Culture, Grotesque Geographies of the Borderscape. Why do I have a book on puppets? I mean, I want to read it, but where is that from? Oh, the things you find when you start like digging into your other stuff. This is the joy of research, everybody. You find a book about puppets. Okay, quick update time. I think I have a much... I wouldn't say it's super clear, but I have the beginnings of the narrowing. I decided that I think it might be better to focus in on the folklore side of things and not mention mythology. Again, I don't see a huge difference between mythology and folklore. Come at me in the comments, but basically in order to get into why that is would take like a whole essay in and of itself, and I don't really have time to get into that right now on this vlog. But that's something to kind of more talk about in the book, where I have the time to spend on that and explain my reasoning. I just don't have that in a 5,000 word essay. It would take up way too much time, and the focus would be more on that than it would be on what I'm trying to say about everything. So I think it might be better to just drop it. To just drop the idea, focus on the word folklore rather than the word mythology, and then I can use a lot of the extraneous phrasings that are around folklore and folklore studies. Music in regards to folklore and folk performances is already very well documented, explained, understood, so that's going to be a lot easier to do. And I can bring in the meta folklore side of things, which I think I might want to kind of make as the focal point of everything. I think the problem is that I don't know enough about whether or not there's enough there. Granted, I do have to like explain a lot of things, so maybe it would end up being fine. I think the problem is that I don't have like a very firm like thesis statement or point that I'm trying to make, or I don't have really like anything other than like focusing it on folklore would be nice. So what I might do is, and so I think what we're gonna do is maybe do another like brainstormy thing, kind of similar to what I was just doing, but now way more streamlined into the folklore, meta folklore side, figuring out what it is that I am wanting to say, basically. And if I can dumb that down to like 1 or 2 sentences, then I can re-explore everything again. I know this sounds like I'll be honest, I don't know if there's an easier way to do this. This is just the way my brain works. As I have all of this shit going on in my brain with all of the information, and I have to like sort through it to figure out what kind of goes together and how much there is, and then figure out whether or not that's worthwhile. But because it's like brain dumped in my dumpster fire of a brain, I don't have like a singular thought that like connects everything. It's just like there, right? So anyway, can you tell I've been having the same headache for 3 days? Anyway, I think what I'm gonna do is really try to streamline this one more time, see if I can really get in on this. I think I want it to be something about meta folklore. I just don't really know the exact way of phrasing it. And it could be something as simple as like how this works. Like, how is Taylor Swift folklore and meta folklore? Like, this is how it works in the contemporary age, and something like that. Like, it can be as simple as that. I think it's just whether or not that does fully explain what it is that I'm trying to do, or whether that's not quite right. Ugh. Anyway, I've got about like an hour and 20. I've got just over an hour or so left of doing this, because then I have to swap over and work on incidental mythology, which I will not be filming, but because I have to do like voice records and shit like that. So I think for this last hour, we're gonna see how streamlined I can make this. We're gonna see if I can come up with a thesis statement by the end of an hour. Oh my god, I used to do, this is what I do. This is what I did for so long. Why? I'm sorry, my brain is just so weird, but I'm hoping that this makes sense to somebody. Anyway, let's try to streamline this into a thesis statement that makes sense. Let's do our best. Okay. Okay. All right, I think I have something. It is a bit more general, but I think sometimes That's fine. Okay, so I've got like a thesis statement of about 2 sentences, but the second one I think really sums it up, which is that this essay seeks to study how Swift's music is folklore and how the multiple layering of narratives creates a complex weave of meaning. I think that's what we're doing, because it's more than just the folklore, but also the multi-layering of different narratives in regards to meta-folklore. I think I'm going to talk about certain definitions of folklore, particularly Alan Dundas and Daniel Ben Amos, focusing on urging of different genres, looking beyond the scope, the fact that Dundas described a folk group as any group of people whatsoever. Ben Amos, who tried to strip the ideas of folklore as something that is only rural, traditional, and irrational, but rather extending that to other things, proving how those things don't actually hold up. I might draw a little bit from my blog post on the album Folklore, which is focusing on speculation as a form of folklore, the bending of reality and fiction, particularly in Swift's work and the album Folklore. I have a quote from her, which is about her kind of idea of folklore, which is a tale that becomes folklore is one that is passed down and whispered around, comparing that to how gossip works, particularly in regards to celebritydom and Taylor Swift herself. I'm talking about meta folklore, which is the commentary on folklore, so the commentary on her and her stories, and how it's not just the audience that does this, but also Taylor Swift herself. And I'm talking about this way too much. So yeah, I think that's where I'm gonna kind of go with it, is the multi-layering of it all, kind of how it all works out together. Yes. I think I'll be able to do this. Next time I film, I'm either going to be putting together the outline, or I will have already done that and be starting to write the rough draft. But I think I'm happy. I think I've definitely gotten an essay of about 5,000 words, give or take a little bit. So that concludes part 1 of the Taylor Swift Swifties essay. But yes, I'm very happy with where it is now. I'm very happy with, yeah, I think I'm excited to start writing it and working on it and stuff. So anyway, thank you so much for being with me, and I'll see you next time. Bye.